Hello, writers. I hope you had a great day Wednesday and you worked on your independent writing project and maybe finished up your personal narrative. Today, I have a couple of very last things that I want you to do. Hello, writers. Today, you are going to finish up your personal narrative and create a wonderful new title for it. And then once you've come up with a title, you are going to create a beautiful hand-drawn cover page for your narrative. And you'll see mine in the video, and I'm kind of proud of it. Here are some notes I'd like you to put into your writer's notebook, and your title is Characteristics of a Great Title. A great title fits the whole piece of writing. It's not just about the first paragraph or the ending. A great title isn't a label or a description. Example, my trip to Disneyland. I've got to do some changing because so far my narrative's called My Trip to New York or My First Trip to New York. So I'm going to have to think about how to make that a better title. A great title attracts the reader's attention. It even creates a bit of mystery. The author looks back on the finished writing for a sense of the focus and the so what. So even when you think about that ending, what is this story really about? What is my whole story about? Can I come up with a great title that kind of hints at that so what? A great title is grounded in the piece. So while it's intriguing, it isn't too obscure. So it has to be related to what your story is about. Just don't make up some mysterious title that has nothing to do with your personal narrative. A great title is memorable. If I think of some of the best books I've read, it's because they have great titles and it helps me remember those books. And a great title is often the result of brainstorming. So you can't just try out a title and say, that's it. Maybe you brainstorm 10 different titles and you really think about which one is the best title. So you can see in my digital writer's notebook, I had to add another page after the one about paragraphing. And I took a screenshot of that characteristics of a great title, but then I also typed those because that's what you would have to do with a paper notebook. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try out a few new titles, and I'm going to call this Possible Titles. And my first title that I had written was My First Trip to New York City. And really, that's one of those labels, and it's kind of boring. So that's not the one that I'm going to keep. So then I think, okay, I'm going to try. All right. I talked about I was in awe and the beginning, and I talked about it at the end, and I wrote about how wonderful some of it is. So maybe awe and wonder. And then I wrote a city of contrasts because in my narrative I talk about some of the ugly things about New York and the loud things and the smelly things, but then I also talk about the beautiful things. And then I came up with one because when I first flew into New York, the first thing I saw from the airplane was the Statue of Liberty. And then in the story, I wrote about the day we went out to visit the Statue of Liberty. And at the end, I wrote about how, my first time I was in awe, and every time I go back, I'm still in awe of New York City. So I'm going to write first and lasting impressions. And I think that is the title that I have decided on for my personal narrative. So I want you to take some notes and try out some possible titles for your narrative, and then pick the one that you think is the best title. If you take a look at these covers, you'll notice they are all hand drawn. And you are only going to be 11 or 12 years old once in your lifetime. And you are so creative. I really want you to draw a cover page for your personal narrative and add the title to it. It's up to you if you want to color it or not, but fill that page so that it looks like a real cover. Once you've done that on a blank sheet of paper or a page of your writer's notebook, you will take a photo of it, and then you will upload that photo to your Google Drive and insert it onto the slide presentation. You will each have a slide where you'll put You will see this slide presentation in Google Classroom called Second Hour Narratives, and there's a slide for everyone. Once you've taken the photo of your cover, you are going to upload it onto one of those slides. So if I go insert image, I know that I put it in my Google Drive. So I'm going to go to my Drive and I'm going to go to my recents. There it is, image. And I'm going to insert that. So this is the drawing I did about mine. So my title is First and Lasting Impressions. And I decided that I wanted to draw the Statue of Liberty. And I'm really not artistic at all, believe it or not, but I'm pretty proud of this. So I know that if you take your time, you can do a really nice cover too, and then take a photo of it and put it on that slide. But please don't edit anybody else's, just do it on one, only one. Then you're going to grade this personal narrative, the mashed potato pizza story. Take a look at the narrative rubric. The total is out of 35 points. How many points would you give the mashed potato pizza story? Let's take a look at the narrative rubric, because I want you to go through your story and compare it to the rubric so that you know if you still have work to do. Learning Target 4.1 is the main learning target for this assignment. I can write a well-structured narrative or other creative text using specific details while engaging my reader. First bullet point, my narrative is about a real moment. It reads like a story, even though it might be a true account. So it's not a one-paragraph journal entry describing your weekend. You are developing it with details to make it a story. My narrative has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That is the structure part of a narrative. My narrative has specific, relevant details. So you're adding details that make your story better and more interesting. The next learning target is 4.2. I can correctly punctuate and use dialogue to develop experiences, characters, or events. So we have asked you to add dialogue to your personal narrative. Maybe there was real dialogue that you remember perfectly. Maybe there wasn't, but you're going to try and think about who is speaking, who was I with, how does that person speak, so that you are making that dialogue as authentic as you possibly can. And we have been practicing punctuating dialogue in IXL, and you had a lesson on Monday or Tuesday about punctuating conversation. So please use those tips to do the best job you possibly can. The next learning target is I can use literary devices to describe experiences, characters, or events. So we have asked you to do some of this in our revision lessons. Maybe add a metaphor or simile, personification, imagery, hyperbole, alliteration, or onomatopoeia to describe experiences, characters, or events in your narrative. And remember, we just want that in small doses. You don't want 10 or 12 different literary devices in a personal narrative. That'll just be a little bit too much. 4.4, I can use sensory language to describe experiences, characters, or events. In my narrative, I create mental pictures that appeal to the sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Those are those show, not tell, and the sensory details. If you need to go back to that video, instructional video to learn about it, or your notes, do that and make sure you have some of that in your writing. But again, it's just those small doses. Your personal narrative is worth 35 points, and that is your first summative assignment. So really take the time to work on this a little bit more and make sure that you have done the best job you possibly can. Thank you. The very last thing you're going to do is get your narrative ready to turn in. So I'm going to take a look at that, and I did decide that my title was going to be First and Lasting Impressions. So I'm going to change that, and I might even change it up here to First and Lasting Impressions. And now I've got all kinds of different colored font, and I don't want to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to highlight, well, actually what you can do is click on Edit, and you can select all. And I'm going to make sure that it's all the same size font. And I think 12 is probably the best font. And you don't want anything all curly or swirly. I just use Arial because I think it's an easy font to read. And I'm going to keep it at 12, and I'm going to make it black. So all of it's black. And I've done my spell check and my grammar check. I got rid of my 3 different beginnings and just picked one, and it all looks good. Make sure that your alignment up here is left align. You don't want it center or right or justify. You want it like that, and you're ready to go. Then what you're going to do is click up here on Share. And you're going to go down to change link to Eastern Carver County Schools. So anyone in this group can view. And so then I'm going to copy that link and done. And then actually what you're going to do in Google Classroom is go into where you see personal narrative turn in. And right now I have it scheduled. It's not there yet, but you can see personal narrative turn in. And what you will do is add that from, okay, so edit assignment. It says here, clean up your narrative and make sure it is exactly how you want it. Add it from your Google Drive to turn it in here. So you will go to turn it in, you'll add it from your drive, and then you hit submit, and you are done. Now, it is technically due on Wednesday, November 4th, because that's what I said in my week at a glance, but really we are done. So if you have it finished, turn it in now. All right, thank you.